Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit, where we break down the mechanics behind global industry shifts. Donald Trump's bold promise to reignite American manufacturing through tariffs has hit a wall. Factories once expected to thrive are now cutting jobs, while allies mirror Washington's protectionist tactics. From drug plants in North Carolina to steel mills in Britain, the ripple effects are shaking entire sectors. What began as a plan to bring jobs home is now backfiring on multiple fronts. And today, we're dissecting exactly how it all unraveled. The tariff dream versus reality, when promises collide with power. When Donald Trump returned to the White House, he reignited his pledge to rebuild America's industrial power. Factories in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina were to roar back to life, fueled by tariffs designed to force companies to build plants here and hire American workers. The plan expanded beyond steel and aluminum to target Big Pharma, with proposed 100% tariffs on imported branded drugs unless firms built in the U.S. The goal sounded simple: protect jobs and secure domestic production. But the outcome told a different story. In Clayton, North Carolina, Novo Nordisk, the maker of Wegovy and Ozempic, began cutting dozens of positions in production, quality control, and HR. The very jobs tariffs aimed to protect were now vanishing. Why? Manufacturing investments take years, global supply chains are deeply rooted, and rising costs often outweigh tariff incentives. Tariffs may shield borders, but they can't force expansion. Instead of creating a manufacturing boom, Trump's policy revealed its first misfire, where economic mechanics clashed with political ambition. Yet the story doesn't end with the U.S. The shockwaves of protectionism reached beyond pharma, setting off chain reactions in global industries. Let's shift gears and see how this played out across the wider supply chain. Pharma's breaking point, when tariffs strained the lifeline of supply. A key pillar of Trump's tariff agenda was to repatriate drug manufacturing, imposing up to 100% tariffs on imported branded medicines unless companies produced in the U.S. The goal: make America the center of pharmaceutical finishing, packaging, and assembly. But under the surface, problems emerged. The policy's enforcement was unclear. Terms like building plants lacked definition, and timelines were murky. Reports revealed the plan was effectively on hold as regulators and pharma giants debated logistics. While companies like Eli Lilly pledged major domestic investments, including a $5 billion advanced therapy plant in Virginia, such projects take years and rely on highly skilled labor rather than mass hiring. Meanwhile, Novo Nordisk's global restructuring cut 9,000 roles, including U.S. jobs, undermining the tariff's intent. Across the pharma value chain, from APIs to packaging, companies faced rising costs, production delays, and strategic uncertainty. In the end, the effort to force reshoring exposed a deeper flaw. Tariffs can inspire ambition, but they don't guarantee growth, only new strains on already complex supply chains. Before we delve deeper, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It helps Piston Pundit reach more car and industry enthusiasts who love dissecting the mechanics behind global shifts. Now that we've seen the pharmaceutical fallout, let's steer across the Atlantic, because Europe isn't sitting idle. Europe's Counterstrike, the tariff war, comes full circle. As the US doubled down on protectionism, Europe followed suit. The European Commission recently proposed doubling steel import tariffs to 50% for shipments exceeding reduced quotas, cutting allowable imports to 18.3 million tons, nearly half the previous limit. The message from Brussels is unmistakable. If America fortifies its markets, Europe will too. This marks a sharp shift for a bloc that once championed open trade and WTO rules. Now, it's prioritizing domestic jobs and industry survival over global free trade ideals. The consequences ripple across continents. Exporters face higher barriers, while manufacturers brace for rising steel costs and shrinking profit margins. For automakers and heavy industry players, steel, the backbone of production, has become a pressure point. Higher costs mean reconfigured supplier networks, relocated factories, and potential job losses. But Europe isn't the only one tightening its grip. Across the Channel, Britain's once mighty steel industry is now under siege, and the stakes are even higher. Britain's meltdown, the steel industry crushed by colliding tariffs. Nowhere is the fallout from tariff wars more severe than in the UK. Once a cornerstone of global steelmaking, Britain's industry is now buckling under pressure. Under the EU's new steel plan, nearly 80% of British exports to Europe face tighter quotas, almost halved, and any excess shipments are hit with a 50% tariff. Industry leaders warn this could be the biggest crisis the UK steel sector has ever faced. The government has already spent £235 million rescuing British Steel's Scunthorpe plant, yet the strain persists. Jobs are at risk, investments delayed, and supply chains rerouted amid fierce competition from cheaper Chinese steel. Unions caution that without decisive safeguards, steelmaking could vanish from the UK entirely. For automakers and suppliers, the consequences are immediate: rising costs, sourcing chaos, and production uncertainty. And that brings us to the bigger picture. What happens when every nation fires up its own tariff engine? Let's zoom out to the global scale. The global shockwave: how tariffs ripple through every supply chain. Here's the crux. When protectionism spreads, the entire global engine starts to sputter. Steel, aluminum, tires, and components flow through international supply chains. So when tariffs rise, costs climb, production relocates, and jobs shift elsewhere, often not to the intended country. In the US, the promised boom in pharma manufacturing never arrived. Novo Nordisk's layoffs proved that point. In Britain, steel jobs are hanging by a thread. Across Europe, retaliatory tariffs mirror US policies, fueling a worldwide trade spiral that fragments supply chains and chills investment. For automakers, this means higher steel and component costs, thinner margins, and reconsidered plant locations. Policy shocks are accelerating long-term change, especially amid China's overcapacity, Europe's energy costs, and shifting alliances. Tariffs were meant to restore industrial power, but instead they're triggering layoffs, inflation, and uncertainty. In today's interconnected auto ecosystem, building walls doesn't rebuild jobs, it just moves them. And after this global tour, it's time for a final pit stop, to deliver the verdict on this grand tariff gamble. The final verdict: tariffs misfire as the world pays the price. After tracing this journey, from Trump's grand promises of an industrial revival to the ripple effects hitting factories from North Carolina to Newcastle, one truth stands out: the tariff engine is misfiring. What began as a strategy to shield American industry has instead jammed the gears of global manufacturing. Jobs haven't surged, costs have. Allies aren't yielding, they're retaliating. And the very industries meant to thrive, pharma, steel, autos, are now battling higher prices, tighter supply chains, and fading investor confidence. For the automotive world, this verdict hits especially hard. Steel tariffs push up vehicle prices, suppliers face unpredictable sourcing, and assembly plants rethink their geography. The dream of bringing jobs home has collided with the reality of a hyper-connected global economy, one that can't be walled off by tariffs without losing efficiency, innovation, and competitiveness. So let's shift gears to you. Do you think tariffs are protecting American workers or driving industries further offshore? Should nations keep shielding industries or start cooperating on smarter trade policies? And from a car lover's lens, will these policies raise the price of your next vehicle? Share your take in the comments. Your insight keeps the conversation alive here at Piston Pundit. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for the latest updates on global auto trends and industry shakeups. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your engines revving and your curiosity running high. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.